Mark Strachan, we're in the house, dude.
Wow. It's amazing. It's
Yeah, man. Super full circle moment. I mean, just to kick this thing off, what a treat this is for me. I mean, you started out as just a listener of the podcast. You've been to that led to a one-on-one call I did way back in the day. And you've been to a handful of Heal and Flow events. We've worked together one-on-one. You're a you're a cornerstone of our men's group, and you've really become one of my best friends and brothers. And man, I've seen the transformation, evolution, emergence, purification that I've watched you go through over the years has been nothing short of awe-inspiring. And I don't say that to like as taking credit for anything. It's really just been watching you tap into your own sense of things, really. And it's been really incredible and inspiring. And I'm just stoked to be here with you, brother.
no, I appreciate that, man. I'm honored. It's fascinating that you mentioned the word circles. I was reading this morning from a book I like to read from, and it mentioned the fact that journeys are all in the realm of circles. They're not this linear progression that we sometimes think. So the fact to your very point that I discovered you on a podcast and here I am sitting here, I mean, this frankly is kind of in the realms of unbelievable, but it's also in the realms of what can happen and emerge when you just when you open yourself up a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah. Did you read that in the Conversations with Angels book?
I did. I did. It's, we've discussed before, I've never really been a particularly disciplined, ritual, practice driven guy. And more recently, I've really found the grounding in the blessing in slowly developing what feel like very aligned and natural habits. So,
Hmm.
my favorite is to get up early, go sit outside, read from a couple of books, and just listen to the dawn chorus. And it's just
Hmm.
majestic. Just to watch those birds fly around and have fun. Um, yeah. So long answer, yes, from the book of Conversations with Angels, which has been really significant for me over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well, you sent me a copy of it and I read it. I read one of the chapters last 2 nights ago. And I think it was the one about journeys happen in circles.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, there's another synchronicity, right? I mean, that's the amazing thing. Oh, that,
Well, I think to me, man, this is the real magic of you and your living ethos is that you have not been a self-proclaimed disciplined individual, and yet you have experienced as profound a transformation, a process of growth and evolution that I've ever seen. And I know it to be true. I mean, physiologically, you look different from when I met you
mm,
6 years ago or whatever, 7 years ago. Like the color of your skin is different, the shape of your head is different, the sound of your voice is different. Uh, literally, dude. And, your process, as far as I can tell, has been one of quiet stillness and allowance of just allowing your inner fire to bloom, your inner energy, your that thing inside all of us that's just kind of waiting there in the darkness. You've allowed it to just percolate and billow and blossom up to the surface. And in that allowance, I think there's a lot of power in a day and age, and we've had this conversation many times before, in a day and age where, you open up Instagram or you just go out into the world and everybody's hammering you with, you've got to have a program. What's your program? You need discipline. You need this. You need that. You need to hammer it. You gotta, all the stuff we have to do. And it's all, it's all real interesting dissension into this, you know, corporate spiritualism that is really just another illusion of the rat race, essentially, plugging us into another matrix. And what I've witnessed in you is a complete unattachment, detachment to any sort of matrix but your own, which is founded in allowing your inner being to emerge. And I think that's fucking powerful, dude. It's a powerful thing in a day and age where every every voice is telling you how you've got to do it. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. If there's, I mean, maybe it's something we can't even really talk about, but you know, I think it's a really powerful thing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to share my experience because, I don't think it's uncommon.
Mm,
But I think when we're called to reflect and we're called to change, I think there are different intersections of which that presents. Um, another thing that I got from conversations with angels was this concept that we often think that we're fairly still and the world evolves around us, when actually it's all the movement that's going on within, and it's just that manifestation or projection of what's going on in the world that we really kind of connect to. And sometimes when we are called to change and we know there's something, a catalyst that really kind of is going to prompt us to move in a direction, sometimes those worlds need to collide. And
mm,
sometimes that can be losing your job, it can be a divorce, it can be a death, but it can be something that actually from the outer side connects into that inner system and really prompts you into reflection. I mean, as I did my early discovery, one of the things I looked at was 12 steps and the magic within that formula, irrespective
mm,
of whether you have addictive challenges or not. It's a process of reflection and evolution. For me, you know, what I discovered pretty early was, what I discovered at school is I'm not very good at following formulas. So even now, my wife will tell you if we have something delivered and it's to be put together. And in fact, the more I progress down my journey, the more difficult I find it to follow these set procedures. And in fact, even some of the programs I've gone on, they've been very powerful intuitively. The actual way in which they are formulated and progressed, it's very difficult for me to tune into that.
mm,
So I've always been someone that seeks to kind of harvest and bring stuff in and then really look to map and correlate and associate and kind of refine them down to points that I can understand. And that's been an inherent part of me, but actually was also becoming an inherent part of my career, which actually worked quite well in my career, which is an interesting paradox because it didn't serve me well in the school environment, or at least the environment I was in. So I've always been open minded in terms of how do I discover, how do I research, how do I bring stuff within, how do I then think about that? How do I sequence, how do I layer that?
mm,
And for me, it's really kind of crystallized into the fact that I don't have any firm hard beliefs. I don't operate to any hard belief system because I think it's all essentially designed by ourselves. Point one, and secondly, it just enables you to learn something every day. What I've discovered is when we do open beyond those blinkers, those five senses, suddenly things just emerge. All those synchronicities, all those coincidences, people just emerge like Ebb and Britain. Like, wow, Ebb's on hot boxing. This is an amazing podcast. It's where you've got five guys or three, four, five guys sitting around and just talking as if there was no audience. And for you there, obviously tightens the name as the draw, but everyone that watched it and everyone that was so disappointed that you left, is that you were that kind of inner energy that kind of held it all together and enabled that energy to rise and fall and move. So, at least what I've discovered is, and it's really kind of evolved into a belief I have, is that, there is power in the if then, in the disciplined approach, in having a formula or a process to achieve a certain means. But I think on a more broader, sustainable level, you really need to kind of cultivate the conditions. So it
Mm.
really is cultivating a garden of self. And when you
Mm.
start to recognize the interdependencies between these different realms, we've discussed this framing I have around domains and dynamics. The core domains in which we experience life, health, wealth, both financial and experiential, family, adventure, professions, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working within a system somewhere. Those are the main areas in which we kind of experience life, or we frame how we think. But then there are these dynamics that can touch any of those, and all of those, and do relationships, values, decisions, energy levels. And then there's those natural disruptors that are just kind of designed to challenge us or block us at certain points. So I've come to believe that that's an ecosystem that has to be recognized, cultivated, and the small thing you can do over here can have an impact over here. It's not just about balancing and moving in between these at the right times.
Mm.
So I don't know whether that makes sense, but that
Yeah.
framework has really enabled me to grow through shedding.
Uh.
It's that shedding and it's that realization and it's that slightly different lens and framework does become really powerful to me. And whether you believe that or not doesn't really matter. If give you an example, so the frame of we come here to experience lessons in life, and we're actually part of that pre-entry design mechanism. Now, whether that's true or not, that frame of within every challenge there's a lesson to be learned is incredibly powerful, and it opens the door for us to explore. And I think part of our challenge is that exploration is in a realm of vulnerability. And in some cases, it's just us either feeling that impact that pushes us, or discovering or being in the right place where we can enter into that, where we feel safe and we understand why there's a reason why we're doing this. So that's what's really been my tailwind for the last number of years. And, I've never been happier. The challenges haven't stopped.
Right.
They're bigger.
Yeah.
But if you can view them differently and you can approach them differently, and when you're in them, you can recognize that they're not just if then, but they can be cause and effect, and you can lean into them. So, we discussed the book, the Five Rings. And
Yeah.
one thing I learned there was the power in posture versus position. And, Masamoto, as a samurai, talks to the fact that you can be as skilled as you wish, but it's really the posture you're in to anticipate, act, and position yourself, which really enables you to have the full use of the equipment and skills you've developed. I think in many ways, I have this kind of silly little frame I use when I'm working with some clients. It's like, I remember when I was 5 years old and I went into school for the first time. And, I was a newbie because we'd moved, and I looked around and I looked at all the other boys and I thought, wow, where do I fit here? How tall am I? How quick am I? How smart am I? How funny am I? And I found my place in that hierarchy. And there's a biological force of wanting us to be accepted, to be safe. But how many of us then sit within that position in that hierarchy all through our lives? There's someone quicker. There's someone better. I'm not as smart as, but I'm smarter than this person. And I think that's one of the containing frameworks that I think is important for us all to be able to just unhook ourselves a little bit. And that can pursue at different paces in different ways.
So, I mean, everything you're saying is there's such power in shifting your operating position, operate your operational posture out of the if then mode and into the cultivation mode.
The
Because
danger. Sorry to interrupt. The danger is they're just labels.
Yeah, for sure. I think about when you're living in the if then, something, as you were talking, it really linked me into something that has been a conundrum of mine over the years as an athlete. And one of the reasons why when I look at things on social media or these programs that get created or people who say, eat like this and then, they're it's all living in the if then. If you eat like this, then you'll have this body. If you train like this, then you'll be this level of fitness. You'll have abs, you'll have a carved chest, you'll have whatever the thing is. And most of it's coming from, interestingly, 18 to 30-year-old individuals who haven't had much life under their belt. But one of the problems that I've run into time and time again as a lifetime athlete, one of the conundrums of the if then equation is that none of it is a long-term solution. None of it works forever. I've done so many different nutritional programs, philosophies. I've tried just about anything you could think of. And none of it works for the rest of my life. I've had to shift and adjust and change, and things that I did 10 years ago don't work now. And foods that used to be totally fine for my system now are really problematic and I just can't eat them. So for me, the if then equation, if you're living in that, where I think a lot of the disciplinarian type teachers live in, if you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be a success, and it's like, well, man, that's really changed for me. I mean, I'm not waking up until like 7 o'clock in the morning now. I have no desire to get up before before 6. And my life is kind of great. I have no regrets about it. I don't feel like I'm losing time or not getting as much done. And so the problem with the if then equation is that it's never sustainable long term. Like, it's not something that you can do for the rest of your life. If you want to live the life of, if you really want to be on the spiritual path where you're continuously purifying yourself, getting to the clearest point possible of perception of yourself and your reality and your relationship to yourself and your reality in your own spiritual evolution as we expand and grow. Because inevitably, with the if then equation, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get fucking tired of it. It's going to become really dull and inhibitory as far as your growth is concerned. So if you can shift your operational posture into one of cultivation, allowance, and the emergence of self, you create an opportunity for yourself to experience the infinite possibilities that are before you.
I told you before this call that my mother would call me halfway through. I love
that's,
my
per-
father.
that's
She
perfect,
may
dude.
call again because she doesn't take the first no as an answer.
It's all good.
For real. But there we are. All good stuff.
uh, so it's really, that's something that came up for me as you were talking, I think is really powerful. The other thing I wanted to ask, what would you say is your ballast point as far as having what's your anchor into, because a lot of people, the difficulty, see, this is really a master's path in my opinion. It's a difficult one for a beginner to wrap their head around, because if you're living in the chaos of reality, which is just here all the time, you're working the job, you've got a family, you're a dad, you're a mom, whatever the thing is, and you just feel like every day you're waking up and you're like treading water just to keep your head above water so that you can breathe. So it can be kind of difficult to tell someone like that, slow down, let it emerge. Can be. I don't think it's impossible, but this is really, to me, this is like a master's path, like someone who really has, you've got some, and like you said, I mean, you've done tons of work, you've done all sorts of workshops, programs, and what I think is great is you have this incredible capacity to harvest what makes sense to you and kind of leave the rest and challenge the rest and say, well, that doesn't make any sense to me, etc. But so what would you say is like your ballast point of where you can hold your center or be have that capacity to come back to your center or come back to that point of reference that is totally in the center of it all, that's totally in the eye of the storm, where there's utter peace and quiet and stillness that allows you to, be have the capacity to endure whatever thing is happening in your life. Do you have that? Is that something you think about? Um, is it just being in your breath and being totally present to the moment? What would you say that anchor point is?
Well, I think first thing, I don't have the answers. I have the shares. Share. Just going back to the if then, because I think that's important, and then we'll come to the anchor because there's definitely one that's become ever more anchored for me. But we'll go back to if then for a minute because I think that's important. We're indoctrinated by if then from the point we are born. If you do this, then. If you do not do this, then. Right? And there's logic to that. I mean, it's that difference between we've discussed managed reality versus direct reality. There's a reason why, as through a societal lens, we've been organized in a certain fashion to provide, protect, and evolve in a mechanism and in mechanisms and in ways which have been designed to benefit the majority, even though recognizing that some people still struggle. So I think, we're all deeply programmed in the concept of if then. I think that,
Yeah.
commercial success, industrialization, the wellness, there's so much this there's so much beauty in the wellness realm, and the fact that especially younger people are more open to explore this. I mean, one of the beauties of coming to one of your retreats is just meeting people. You're like, damn, who are these people? Everyone's different. They come from different backgrounds. Everyone's of different age, but there's a commonality. And I think part of that shedding and unhooking is just moving away from the fact that our lives are predetermined and that if then keeps us protected. I think one of the challenges of the wellness space is see me, be me. Hey, you want a six pack? I'll get you to get in a six pack. This is what you'll need to do, and that incorporates sacrifice. And there's nothing wrong in that.
Right.
I think a lot depends on what is the context and the association that someone might have to getting a six pack, and then where do you take that from there? So I think, there is a place for if then, there is a place for process, there is a safe for marginal gains to a point of reaching a certain spot. But I do believe in that broader context that if processed and progressed in isolation, once again, keeps you pretty narrow in these narrow channels. And I think part of, and this is a broader thing, as the world changes and technology evolves, we're going to be offered the opportunity, society wise, to be subject or to serve technology in a contained way, or we're going to be able to use technology to serve us in a more open way. So I think there is a place for if then. I think there is a place for a lot of the wellness programs, a lot of for coaching. But I also believe that, and at least I've experienced, that when you do open up beyond that, when you are comfortable or when you are forced to access that inner knowing, things emerge. And
Mm.
when they emerge naturally from your own perspective and you can align them, that's where the magic and the real fucking power emerges. And I think that leans into what is my anchor. My anchor is I create my own reality. It's my perceptions and
Mm.
my interpretation of events that really determine what they mean to me. And that's a daily challenge. It's not a quick fix. You don't just suddenly, but it's a skill set, I think, and it's a growing confidence and comfort that things aren't what they seem through this one lens. There are more lenses to this. And I think going back to, I think people face different challenges. The people of Ukraine are in challenges you and I can't even imagine. And to say to them, just sit still and cultivate, just wait, it's all going to emerge. I don't think that's really helpful. And, you're likely to get a pretty kind of succinct response.
Yeah.
And for those people, once again, without thinking about this too much, right? I mean, what drives those people, once again, not knowing what they're experiencing, to be present or adopt a posture in a certain way given those challenging conditions?
Mm.
They have to have this inner sense of perspective. Whether you're being called to go to the front or whether you're not, there's a conditional element that comes into that to drive it to actually nurture and drive an action, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But I think in its most simplistic form, and this is one I really like, and I've said to people before, we often think about the pursuit of happiness. What is happiness in the modern world? Is it contentment? Content that we're not unhappy? Where's the magic reside? Is it in joy? Because at least in my experience, joy emerges out of nowhere, right? I can be walking through New York City and I can be thinking, wow, I'm really proud of my diet. And then suddenly I get the smell of some street meat and I'm like, man, how the fuck do I avoid that? And some days I'll walk past and feel good about myself, and other days I'll say, fuck it.
Mm.
And that
I
combination of
see.
whatever they put in there is a joyful moment.
Yeah.
So when in its own little way, reading from Conversations with Angels, reading a book,
Mm.
finding something that aligns with the stage I'm currently at, that alignment, I think cultivates the possibility of more probable emergence being presented, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, dude.
No one else
Yeah.
is.
Well, I think
And we're all unique in our rhythms. That's the other thing as well.
yes.
5 a.m.
Yes.
cold plunge, beautiful, but like that's not for everyone. It doesn't fit their rhythm in every day, in every way.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to self-judge when you start that stuff. I mean, it's the classic New Year resolution. Hey, here's what I'm doing. Bump, bump, bump. And by March, it hasn't worked out. You blame, and then you look in the mirror and go, fuck, I am a loser. When in fact, that's far from it.
Well, that is to your point. That's living in a conditional reality, right?
That's an external.
That's due to living in a conditional reality. I'm a good boy if I ate all my vegetables. If I ate all my vegetables, then I'm a good boy. Well, I've been eating pizza and fucking cupcakes, so I'm a piece of shit.
If you don't complete your homework, if you don't study on a subject for which you have no interest and the teacher isn't very good, you will fail in life. Damn. Think about that spell we impose on our kids.
Yeah, it sucks.
You
Well,
know,
that's the well, I guess what I was trying maybe it came across, but to put it hit the nail on the head with this idea I was looking to get at with my perception of the if then equation is what happens when you do the if and the then outcome is not what it's been the last 10 times. Like what if it's like for 10 years you're doing this, you're in this if then. If I get up at 5 a.m., I get my workout in, I eat my protein rich breakfast, and then I'm feeling strong, I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling empowered, I'm feeling inspired. What happens after 10 years you've been in that mode? And then one day you fucking do it and you don't feel any of those things. Then what? You know?
I think that's a gift, right?
100%.
I mean,
But to somebody who's in that paradigm, they go, "What the fuck, dude? What happened? Where do I go? What's next?" You know?
and I think that, in my experience, that presents two challenges, right? So I look back on my life, and there are times when I've sat within, whether it's a particular place I worked or a relationship, I sat within them too long. I
Mm,
know that, but it's very different
uh-huh.
to shift. It's very different to move into that realm of vulnerability and to try something different, especially when we've got those if thens around it. Well, if you leave, you need to find another job. What happens if you don't find another job?
Yeah.
So we're held by this if then
Right,
framework.
right. Yeah.
Why sometimes you need that external impact to push you.
Yeah. I wanna talk, more about the happiness, concept too.
Can I throw in a frame of reference here?
Yeah, please, dude,
Scotty
please.
Scheffler, right? Scotty
Before
Scheffler,
we yeah.
probably the best golfer out there on the planet. For those that don't know, the best golfer.
He just won
He just won the British Open,
the British Open, yeah.
or as the British like to call it, the Open. But nevertheless, um, prior to that tournament, he was asked, and I can't remember the precise words to the effect of, "How exciting is it that you're challenging for all these majors and it's wonderful and it's like competitive?" And he said words to the effect of, "It's great for the first 2 minutes after I win an event. And after that, I ask myself, where's the fulfillment?" So if a guy at that level and that opportunity to prove himself is asking about fulfillment, then it happens to us all at different stages.
Yeah.
I watched him, and we all thought he was going to win at least from the start of the final round. When he won, he was very poised, quite stoic, kind of like, thank you. And then he saw his family and he erupted. For me, that distinction is really key.
Well, yeah.
Difficulty is making that shift. And I think sometimes it's enforced. Sometimes we can just start to build in. And it's just asking ourselves questions, different lenses, different frameworks. Could this, should this, can I view this differently? Because ultimately, I believe we have all the answers ourselves. And we have the answers that are attuned to who we are and the rhythms we have. But it's really difficult to have the confidence to actually cultivate those and
Yeah.
develop those and express those because we've never had the chance to do so. I mean, we've used these terms before. And actually, the primary reason why I left finance was because this inner sense of like, I've never opened my wings. I've never truly opened my wings and tested how high and far I can truly fly on myself. I found success from an unconventional starting point. But, I mean, just to give you, I mean, you know my story, but like I left school at 16, and I had no right to have a career in finance and hedge funds. No right. It was amazing and it brought fabulous rewards and experiences. But there became a point where I was like, is this it? Is the money really worth it? Is the security worth it? Is this really what I'm called to do? If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, just before I hopefully go somewhere positive. So I think,
Well, what do you think about that as far as because I felt the same thing in my football career, you know? And that was a dream I had since I was a little kid to do this thing, and then I did it. And what what ratio would you say that the emergence of those questions, is this it? Is this worth it? What am I doing here? How much of is the emergence of those questions about your life journey just moving into the next phase or chapter? But we perceive it as, what am I doing here? Holy shit. How'd I get here? What the fuck? You know?
I love that you asked that, right? Because I think as you were talking about that, the question that arose in my mind was, isn't it sad that we view this as the negative? Oh my God,
Right.
I did all this to get to here.
Right.
And holy shit, I'm still not really happy and fulfilled. Wow. Actually, if you were to reframe that and go, wow, I've managed to achieve one of my dreams,
Yeah.
I've managed to break through and reach this pinnacle. What's next?
Yeah.
What do I learn from what worked for me? What do I learn that didn't work for me? What did I learn in that process? How can I cultivate that into something that may emerge for me? And I think, for me, when I left finance, it wasn't as if I said, okay, this is what I want to do. Hey, I'm just going to allow this all to emerge for me over a period of time. I think we all have frameworks and understandings, but it's by cultivating those conditions and walking that path that other things come, or you get further affirmed in terms of what you wish to do. And I think that's a basis from which we operate life, right? You know, I look back at myself and I was always really a guy who, the glass was half empty.
Mm.
At the pinnacle of my career, where on one level it was so amazing and I'm, being praised and I'm being pulled into competitive sales situations. I've been flown to London for a 2-hour meeting and flown back. When I got home, that may have been the most miserable point in my life. That polarity. And I think for me, what I'm discovering is it's all a question of reframing.
Mm.
And if
Yeah.
you reframe this challenge as an opportunity and recognize that actually, perhaps, whether we believe it or not, that life is a journey, an opportunity to live and experience the lessons, and that you never get to a point of attainment where you go, wow, okay, this is great. I'm successful. I'm retired. I'm now going to go do this. You'll probably find there's no one else to do it with. So the key to it is, how do we just navigate this path of life? Recognizing and appreciating that challenges will present themselves, but they are an opportunity. We've discussed that growth really is on the other side of the door with resistance on it, right? We're all resisted to work through certain things or step into certain things. But sometimes the key to that is just doing a small thing, seeing where that leads, sowing that seed in the garden, see what emerges. Doesn't need to be perfect. So I don't know if that answered the question in terms of a ratio. And a lot of it is
No, I think you did. It's a reframing exercise, you know.
because, I don't know, when I hear about a ratio, I align it to if then.
Yeah, yeah.
And, once again, if then, that is a powerful reference for how we think about things, but it's only a tool. It's not the be all and end all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that's a really powerful thing that we're not conditioned. We have to learn how to do for ourselves is the reframing of the life
I
circumstances.
think what's powerful is, at least I feel it, and we've discussed it, the world is changing,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah,
discussed it, those old playbooks, those old frameworks, those old success paths, they're no longer valid. They don't have the tailwind they once had.
yeah,
And, I look at, younger people, you spoke about those, 20 to 30s, even into the 35-year-olds. Everyone's like, fuck, what's life about?
yeah,
Willing to sacrifice my health for wealth under the banner of if then, and getting to a point when I'm 65, or it could be 80, the way the world's going, when I can retire and travel the world for a year. I want to discover, how can I express who I am now? And my generation could look down on them and go, "Are you kidding me? Like, you want everything now? You need to work, put your head down, like you're naive, you're just childlike, like this isn't how the world works." Well, it isn't how the world needs to work. And I think that question, that confusion, that's a powerful element of that collective consciousness.
mm,
That eventually is going to kind of seep breath into the fractures that I think are emerging now in terms of how we're organized and how we're motivated. Because if then is just really a motivation technique.
mm, yeah,
And if you speak, I mean, I read something again, we're giving another plug for Conversations with Angels, but I'm very happy to do it. I read something further this morning was like, and I say this with pure, absolute respect for religion, and this isn't meant as as any kind of challenge to anything, but it referenced the fact that, when we think about whoever we define as our God sitting above us, and we're operating under his realm and we are conscious of judgment against his
Mm.
vision and access of us, once again, we're being held to the if then. If we actually think about God sitting within us at any point, then it's far easier to think about, cultivation and who we are and expression. Having the confidence that actually, if he's sitting there or she's sitting there, whatever form she may take, holy moly, all those issues I have, warts and all, they're okay.
Mm.
I don't need to beat myself up when I say the wrong thing at the wrong time in the wrong place, because that essence is already within me.
Right.
That's who I am.
Yeah.
And I think, thought off the back of that came to life for me this morning was that ultimately the journey of life is all about self-acceptance, accepting who we are and loving ourselves without any conditional need from anyone else. And I think, we think about if then to find a point of completion, whether it's the money, the house, the kids, retirement home or whatever, or even just getting through to a point where your life changes. That's all associated to finding completion in us. And I think if it's possible, if we can find completion in ourselves during life, then suddenly that just opens up everything to life being an adventure.
Mm.
Now, there's a
No doubt.
practical element to this, of course,
Yeah.
right? Because, I've come to believe that for me, even though I've reached this point of relative kind of happiness, there's still a lot more. There's still a lot more for me to do. My vision is not sitting under a tree saying "Kumbaya." I've now found the answer. I think the challenge and the beauty is, as we've discussed, is to get back on the field.
Yeah.
That's where you get the chance to go see how your experiences might be different from this slightly different perspective. Because along the lines of life is an inner game, we create our reality. Everything we perceive is all associated to everything that we absorb and respond to in life is all subject to our own perceptions, our own predictive motives, and although also this presumptive kind of influence that we receive from the external. If you can blow that dust out or reject that static, I think it presents a slightly different playing field.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been big for me, man. Getting back on the field. I mean, that's a great metaphor for me, and an important one because that's really when I'm flying high, I'm on the field. I'm not on the sideline watching it happen. I'm involved. I'm involved.
Yeah. I mean, I
You
think
know.
about that field as a piece of grass,
Huh? Yeah, totally.
but actually, I thought most recently that actually perhaps it's just this frequency field.
Mm.
Perhaps
Mm.
it's the field of frequency to step back into.
Yeah.
And it's the frequency we admit and the frequency we receive and our interpretation, our ability to surf that.
Yeah. I love that, dude. I think you're totally right. Which also brings me back to this idea of happiness, which we've been, I think, kind of knitting the threads together here. But I heard this great quote the other day. This guy, this actor, Bob Odenkirk, who's he played Saul in Breaking Bad, and then he had the show Better Call Saul, and he's kind of turned into this really funny action hero in these movies called Nobody, where he's like this former assassin turned, you know, suburban dad who's just like a badass.
I think I saw that. That's the one where he beats up six guys on the bus.
Yeah, exactly. And he was doing a podcast, and the guy asked him, "Who do you envy?" And he said, "I envy the guy that's at home with little kids running around." And he said, "Because man, when I was that guy, I never thought about my purpose or who I am. I was just being a dad. My purpose was picking up all the shit between the kitchen and the front door, you know?" And I thought that was so fucking just like it hit me right in the chest. And I thought, that's it's such a powerful posture, position in life when your purpose is innate. Your purpose is built into your circumstance because you don't have to think about anything. You're not wallowing in what am I supposed to do? Who am I? What's my purpose? It's given to you. And we can't always necessarily have that or be in that. We're not always in that phase of life. But what I think is really important about that is in this idea of being on the field, to me, that's where happiness really lives. I've spent the last couple years have been very interesting for me in recalibrating and reconfiguring my life, my how I operate, what I'm doing, my relationship with myself. And in doing all of that, I've spent a lot of time. I put a lot of things down, things that like this podcast, all sorts of things. I just totally put them down because I had to get clear on like what's really going on here. What do I really want? What do I really want? What do I really want to be spending my time doing? And I had to put a lot of things down for a moment. And in doing that, I realized how powerful and important it is for me to be on the field. And the field for me looks like doing the podcast, connecting with people, starting the men's group, doing events, teaching yoga, anywhere, place, time, moment where I have to be accountable to other people and connect with other people. I'm on the field. When there's stakes involved, where I have to show up, where I get to show up and be me and connect with people and touch people and listen to people. I'm thriving, dude. I don't have to think about anything. I'm not wallowing in anything, and that's where fucking happiness emerges for me, you know? So anyway, I mean, walking through the city in New York, I've had many days where I'm just walking through the city and feel totally at peace, you know, just walking,
Mm.
walking like from the top to the bottom of the island, it's like there can be nothing better with a coffee in your hand and maybe some music on or just listening to the chaos of the city atmosphere.
Well, I
But
think,
anyway, on the topic of happiness, I think it's found when we're out of our head.
well, I think it's similar to being in a flow state, right? When you're
Yeah, yeah.
aligned in a way in which you can express how you wish to express in that moment.
Mhm.
You like to go onto the field, you like to express yourself, you like those boundaries, you like those challenges. But there's time in which you need to come off the field and be on that bench to replenish, right? It's that cycle
Yeah.
of energy. We often think about, I mean, there are so many programs and courses on time management.
Mm.
I mean, that's useful, but isn't it more interesting to have courses around how we employ our energy
Uh,
and how do we replenish our energy? Most of us, I mean, when I think about my days back in finance, I would be covering 10 different bouncing balls, which meant my energy level was just like this. And I'd find a bit of replenishment. What was the replenishment? Jumping on a plane, go and sit on the beach, or going home
uh-huh.
Saturday night.
Right.
If we start to think about energy in a different way, like almost like the periodization that athletes now do about building into and replenishment and the importance of building through to a peak performance.
Mm.
Once you have that adaptable way in which you can furnish that time reference, that canvas, suddenly you're in this alignment. And I think everything, for me, if you'd say go back to the anchor, what is the anchor formula for me? It's about having faith in who you are,
Mm.
faith in the ability to navigate whatever challenge is going to present themselves, working in alignment, and then acting from that point of alignment. That will not guarantee happiness. That will not guarantee success, but it will guarantee that you're able to express how you feel, how you wish.
Mm.
And that I think, generates whatever that term happiness really means.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
I mean, talk about New York. One of my primary regular points of envy is when I'd work at a weekend, jump in the car, or get car service, and come back and forth into New York. And I'd look on the Upper West Side, down by the water during the summer.
Uh
All
huh.
these families, man, barbecuing, right? And it's all people mostly from, West Harlem. They're there, they're having fun. Like you can just feel the magic, man, and the connection that's coming from this collection of people, family and energy. And I'm sitting in the car going home or going back to the office. Now I don't know
Uh
who's
huh.
better off.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Society may tell me that I'm the more fortunate one. And perhaps I am, until it doesn't feel like I am. And I think that's when you go back to that point of talking about, if I try and get this right, a friend of mine shared it, and I think Will Smith was the guy that came up with this. Being at the top of the cliff or the bottom of the ravine, that can have the same feelings. You can
Mm.
feel the same thing,
Oh, yeah. It's good, man.
and it's just about this thing we're doing. We think about it as windows or doors and windows. There are doors in which people decide that they want to explore some kind of change. There might be a life condition that changes.
Mm.
They just kind of feel that there's something more to this,
Right.
and we can help them create that journey. But for a lot of other people, it comes through different windows within life, right? A circumstance or a condition in life that they're looking to get some kind of expertise, optimizational form around. And whilst that's productive, there's an element of who you are within the context of that's ever more important. So, silly example, right? Someone wants to negotiate a raise. They're in a negotiation and they go online and they see Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator. Really interesting stuff. And he has what? 10 to 12 principles of negotiation. Trying to factor that and think about how you're going to configure that in what might be a 30-second or 3-minute conversation with your boss. At the very least, you're putting a lot of pressure on performance when you
Uh huh.
room. When actually, I think there's benefit in looking at this in a broader context. Who is your boss? What's their position? What's their values? What's their incentives? What leverage do you have at this particular point or can you build into? And then more importantly, who are you? And I'll give you a silly personal experience to this, right? So, at the point of which I earned the most when I was in finance, I could have earned so much more. But something stopped me. And you know what it was? It was guilt. And you say to yourself, well, how can you be guilty about that? The relative level that I was being paid versus what I knew my dad had got paid and my grandfather had got paid, and the work they had to do relative to what I was doing, it was like, who am I to complain? Are you kidding me? Looking back, I'd have been so happy to achieve this. But the reality was my worth was more. And understanding that and being able to configure that in a way where you can get that fair exchange of value. I mean, you shared me this once, right? You should never do anything for free. And I think from a commercial perspective, you're right. In the coaching space, in the guidance space, the advisory space, it's like, well, what do I charge, man? Should I charge 200 an hour, 500 an hour, 1,000 an hour?
Uh huh.
And the real question is, what is the value that you're providing and who is that other person? And what does it mean to you, the level of compensation that you're going to ask?
Right.
I bet, because I know you've done this in the past, I bet you can take $50 from someone for an hour with someone who you think can really benefit from your time and you receive something far in excess of that value.
Yeah.
Or you can charge $500 to a person who's just a prick,
Yeah.
who is just wants to like you to tell them that they are right.
Yeah. And all you're getting is the $500.
You're getting the $500 and you're getting their imposed energy and
Yeah.
frequency embedded on you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the end of these calls, these coaching calls, whatever you want to call them, you know, some of them are taxing. And
Well, yeah.
it's like, damn, I can feel their shit on me. They just peed all over me.
Yeah.
I think, once again, it's all about frame of reference, where you are, how you're moving those dials.
Yeah. Well, dude, I can't believe we've been talking for an hour. The time just flies by. Two things I want to share. I mean, we're gonna have to do another episode, another part two, maybe many parts to this, but because I want to talk about a lot of the work you've done and some of the mystical experiences you've had. I think are really fucking interesting and fun, and I think people would love to hear it. The stuff that you call really weird and fucking crazy and out there. But two things I want to share. Going back to that time management thing, made me think of this great thing that Bob Proctor said when he was working with one of his great mentors, a guy named Earl Nightingale. And he had been working for Earl for, a little while. And one day, Earl had to go give a talk. And he asked Bob, he's like, "You want to come with me?" And Bob was like, "Yeah, definitely. I mean, anytime I can get one on one with Earl, like, it's invaluable." So he rode in the car with Earl, and he said to Earl, he's like, "Man, how did you master time management?" And Earl goes, "What in the hell are you talking about, dude? Time can't be managed. I haven't mastered time management. Can't be managed. It's impossible. What I've done is manage my energy." And what Earl taught him was every night before bed, and this is, kind of a simple thing, but and maybe I think it's out of the if then, but it's into the programming yourself in the power of how you're spending your time and the flow of energy. He would write out all the things he wanted to get done that day. And that was how he became who he was. Is just he would program his energy into what he wanted to do and where he wanted to go. So that was one thing I thought was interesting that came up. We can't manage time. There's no managing of time. And to your point, because you said it basically, how do we manage our energy? How do we use our inner power to create the life that we want, or to do the things that we want to do? And then one thing I want to close with here, because you've got, maybe you're not ready to talk about it, but why not? I'm going to throw it out there. Your program, Inner Wisdom, and one of the principles of it that I think is to me so fucking powerful is the ideal of presence over performance. And everything you've talked about today, to me, is leading us towards the true power of ourselves is found in presence rather than being concerned about the performance of things or what it looks like. And if you could elaborate a little bit more on that idea, just to close it out for us, to close the circle here on this idea of presence over performance, if we can shift into that posture, that frame of perception, how powerful that is for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, just to your first point, that process of him noting down what it was he wanted to achieve today. And at the end of that day, either affirming or confirming that he achieved them or that other things actually emerged. To me, that is if then, that's life optimization, but there's a place for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can talk about inner wisdom at another time, but what inner wisdom's really about is offering a bridge between self-development and understanding who you are and those life optimization techniques that
Mm.
align to your own rhythms and what's important to you and create this practical and real impact in the way in which you experience life. And I think an example of that is this concept of presence over performance.
Mm.
And I think it's particularly acute to men and this
Uh,
concept of masculinity. And I think,
mm.
once again, masculinity, the feminine, it's a label and it's a buzz term, and it's very easily, I think, can easily be misunderstood and can easily be held by gender, when in fact I think it's just part of just different energy systems, imprints and codes. We all have feminine, we all have masculinity. It's all a fusion. It's how we kind of build into it. We frame it. We express within it. But I think presence is, performance is, and I'll just use this from a personal reference, right? If you work for an organization, whether it's on Wall Street, working for investment banking, or anything else, you feel like your value is driven by your performance. And it is
Mm,
for the most part. But the depth or the heights to which you progress are as influenced by the presence that you hold.
mm,
I'll give you a stupid example, right? So when I go back to England, or when I used to go back to England, and I talk to my friends, all great regular guys, successful guys, they're like, "How do you go into these competitive sales meetings? Who the heck are you? Like, how do you do that?" And I would half joke, I'm like, I just walk in there thinking I'm James Bond. But that persona would put me in a place of relative kind of comfort. And I think personas, you know, presence,
mm,
posture, personas, there is an alignment to all of those.
mm.
But, we've spoke a lot and I've kind of self-reflected on, what is that masculine energy? How can I be the best husband or father I can be? And, I love Laird Hamilton's concept of like, he's just a pillar. He
Yeah.
provides that solid pillar frame of reference. He has, I think, 2 or 3 daughters and obviously a wife. And he admits sometimes they just walk past him and ignore him as if he's not there. Sometimes they'll bump into him and not even acknowledge that he got bumped, but they recognize his presence. We spoke about the stag. When the stag stands there, he doesn't need to move. You feel the power of his presence. So I think understanding the essence of who we are and how that relates to the presence that we can express is such an interesting doorway.
Yeah.
That presence and posture also is a foundation for the way in which we communicate and the energy that we express through the language we use.
100%.
It's, posture we can self minimize. Wow, this guy's better than me. He must be better than me. He's smarter than me. Wow, he can sit in an ice plunge for 9 minutes. Man. That guy's a killer. So we have the ability, we can sometimes get set in these self minimize positions, but then we also have the ability to maximize over others and sit in judgment of others as well. So
Mm,
for me, posture is just this fluid, adaptable, presence framework by which the posture can be expressed. And I also think that part of that adaptive nature is being willing to and open to adopting different personas at different times.
mm.
If you are, whatever job you have, that persona, there's no reason why that shouldn't be different to the persona you have when you're back at home. And I think one of the challenges is we tend to carry that persona into different realms. And I think understanding, once again, those different realms and who we are and the best expression of who we are within those, whether it's using the term presence, posture, persona, it's just about being who we are.
Mm,
Life is about, the gift of life is free will and our ability to express. And the beauty of life is being able to do that in an aligned way into who we truly are. Recognizing there will be positives and negatives. I'm still looking to get there, but it's a beautiful journey.
yeah, dude. It's a constant process, man. It's a constant process. Fuck, brother. What a great convo, man.
Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Your recent podcasts have been outstanding, man.
No, this has been one of my favorites of all time, dude.
Well, I'm
I
honored.
mean, no surprise, just because anytime we get on the horn, I'm always like fired up and inspired and excited about life. So
Well,
I think people are gonna love this, man. It's a great. I mean, we're gonna do many more, so it's
I
just
would
great to
add
get
one
on here.
final thing that I think
Yeah,
part for me of the true beauty of being open-minded and broadening that horizon and allowing things to emerge are the emergence of people like you. I mean, I've just sat and listened in honor and awe of what you've done for people. Even just listening to your podcasts, right? And then to go to a retreat and hear about a guy that came from Australia and had to change his flights 3 times just to be there, and then want to be part of your men's group, or the woman that came from Germany.
yeah,
That's a power, man. That's a resonance. I feel blessed that I've met you, and I feel blessed that I've met others. And some of those relationships are seasonal.
Mm.
Some of them are
Yeah.
longer term.
Yeah.
I think that's all just part of the journey and the experience. Yeah, it's been fun, man. I appreciate my first ever podcast. I managed to get
Amazing.
through it.
What an honor for me, brother.
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Mark's got a lot of really incredible shit coming down the pipe, so stay tuned. I'll keep you guys posted on everything. And man, you guys have an excellent rest of your day, and I'll see y'all on the flip side. Peace.
Appreciate it.